Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is a quick video about Noah's Ark. Imagine today that you're put in a position to do the Noah's Ark kind of thing, where you have to gather your family up and get on a boat with animals and restart the world. Could you do it? You know, the world today, like how everything is, you know? Okay, let's say this, right? You, the individual I'm talking to, you get on a cruise ship, right? You get a cruise ship, a whole cruise ship loaded with food and that technology and everything, and you take your family with you, right? God floods the earth, right? Destroys everything, you know? Everything wiped out. Everything as we know it today is gone. The buildings, everything, the cell towers, all that stuff is gone. It's just now you and your family in a cruise ship in a boat full of animals. All right? Now, y'all got to restart the world, right? Now, okay, let's say you and your family, a couple of friends, so it won't get kind of creepy. But let's say this, right? You got to restart the world, right? Now you got your iPhone, you got all that stuff, and what good is that stuff for you? Your phones and stuff, your computers, what good is it? Off the ship, where it's going to plug into? All right, when the ship runs out of gas, fuel, what happens? All right, you got a solar battery, right? You got a solar backup. You're smart. What happens when that's not working anymore? When it breaks down, wear and tear, what happens? Let's say you bought all the equipment that you got, make tents and stuff like that. You know, maybe some brick and stuff. What are you gonna build? How much are you gonna build? Eventually, you have to start from scratch. Eventually, you have to become primitive, right? You only got 100 years, if you're lucky, right? You got 100 years of life. So now you got to teach your children about what? Us, the people who got destroyed, who got judged by the Lord, right? Now, stay with me. Stay with me. You teach your children about us. They teach their children about us. And it keeps going on and on and on, right? Eventually, the battery power is going to run out. Eventually, the videos is going to disappear. It's going to be over with. You ain't going to be able to watch them and everything. So a lot of us going to be lost in translation, a lot of this information. And when they start writing their books, how are they going to identify what a laptop is? How are they going to identify the streets and all the things that you know about today that you take for granted? Things that mean nothing to your local store, the bodega next door, or whatever. How are they going to identify or relate to all that? They may call a store a market or something that y'all develop later on throughout the years of being primitive, right? It's going to be a book written by primitive man about an advanced civilization. You understand what I'm getting at? That's what the Bible is. In Noah's time, they lived up to be 800 years. Look where we came within a few hundred years. Look at how we got computers, laptops, cars, things, planes, all of that we take for granted. But when the flood happened, right? It'll be wiped out just like I just gave you that example. It will be wiped out. And the children will be dumbed down. You could educate them as much as you can. You could talk about it over and over, hold the classes. But eventually it's going to get lost in translation as the time progresses. And then when they start writing the books, it's going to start, well, what was this? What was that? They're going to just, it's going to be a myth until they can advance to that, to where we at now. So imagine these guys in Noah's time lived 800 years plus, 600 years plus, because none of them hit 1,000, they said. But they lived a long time, and they was on earth for a long time. And then they said the sons of God, which is angels, right, took the form of man and made it with the daughters of men. And they had the Nephilim. The Nephilim was giants. They were smart as hell, right? So maybe they got to the point where they got way past where we're at now. Imagine, they got way past where we're at now. And just like we do the fantasy movies with Star Trek, let's say they was able to do all of that, right? They established colonies up in space. And being just like a human being, when we go to certain parts and we hold generations after generation in certain parts of the world, this planet Earth, we start changing our form, our shape, our face shape. That's why we got different races, as they call it. But it's only one race, the whole freaking human race. But they, because it looks different, and because they want to separate us. But we're all human. But we from different parts of the world. So from different parts of the world, we start looking different. So let's say that same thing has happened. It happened when the giants went into space, went to different planets and colonized, and there for thousands of years, right? They didn't know what was going on here on Earth. The ones that was on Earth knew what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's get this. So they live all that time. They got space travel. They went up into space, right? Now, I heard people talk about what's that group? The Anunnaki, if I'm saying it right. They always talk about the Anunnaki. Big black giant men, from different planets and stuff came down to Earth and this and that. Now listen, didn't the Bible tell you about giants? And as I'm saying to you right now, that civilization was way advanced before that flood, before they got punished. You know what I'm saying? Let's say the Anunnaki, they come down, they came to Earth, and they start talking about, they're here to help us, whatever. They created us. Let's say that's BS. They was here with us. All of these so-called spacemen and stuff like that, every one of them, like they say, oh, we created humans, we made humans. Why? You would do the same thing if you was there, you know what I'm saying? And you came back to Earth and people is, it's nothing but primitive motherfuckers there, excuse my language, but it's nothing but primitive people there, so-and-so's kids. You got all the technology and they come down like, damn, they ain't got nothing there. All of it's gone. I went to see Bob, and my family's gone. What happened? And then you hear from the kids, oh, they went to flood. Well, I ain't say like baby, but there was a flood, and that's my cat. There's a flood, and the world got destroyed and this and that. But they don't remember, they don't know nothing, they're kind of like, so you play and say, yeah, I'm your God, I brought you into the world and I created y'all, make me your leader, and you see how the Egyptians, some of them pictures is giants sitting in the chair and stuff like that. Say that happened. When they came back and Noah's people was there, they like, okay, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to make kingdoms. And we're going to take over the world. And it's, think about it. So all these so-called aliens from different planets, everything started here in Earth. And they went up in space and established colonies. And then finally they came back home and found the world had changed. We changed. You get what I'm saying? All of them from Earth. And they BSing the world, pretend like they're not from here. They're not human. And then you say, okay, like the grays, they look different and stuff like that. We look different. I mean, you got black people, they don't look like each other. I mean, some black people look this way and that way. Other ones look like that and look like that. You got white folks. All right? Our brothers and sisters. And they look different. Look at our Asian brothers and sisters. Their eyes and their hair texture, all of it look different, but we're all human. We're all the same. We come from the same folks. You get what I'm saying? The environment changed them. So when you come down with these grays and stuff like that, the environment changed them. They just from here. That's how it's just like we always look at the world behind us as being cavemen. I'm sorry to say it like that, but we look at them as primitive, because we're taught that way. We're not taught that they was more advanced than us, and we're just trying to catch up right now. I mean, we got computers and stuff like that. Maybe, like people say, oh, maybe aliens came down and taught them how to do the computers and stuff. Yeah, because they already established it. Maybe they did. Maybe they did, and it wowed us because we was dumb for it. We didn't know about it, and they pushing us slower and slower. And then every time we get to a certain point, they probably try to reboot us. But they all started here. They just bullies. You know what I'm saying? They all started here from Noah's time. They just pretend like they from elsewhere so they could be gods over us, but they're nothing but offsprings of Adam and Eve. Well, Nephilim, is offsprings of, but the mother, is the daughters of Adam and Eve. And another note, every time you see a movie, right, the Anunnakis, they're all tall, right? Right? Now think about it. What's a Scientology movie? Battlefield Earth or whatever it was. Wasn't they giants too? Wasn't they giants that came to Earth, took us over, and this and that, just dominated us? What they wanted, gold. How they got gold up in space? See what I'm saying? And then you look at Stanley Kubrick, if I'm saying this right, the one who did Aliens, and they made that movie, and you see the first beginning, this tall giant dude, all giants, like they know that they're giants, but they pretend like, oh yeah, because it was taught, oh, we're not from your world. We live in so and so, and we had thousands of years ahead of your planet. Yes, you did, but you came from here, and you went up there and lived up there for 1,000 years. Then it got reboot. It got reboot. You're not older than our planet. You're just older than us. You see what I'm saying? And that's the trick. I want to tell you something. If they, how you could figure it out, how you could trick them. They all have the same weakness, the same sin that we have, the same problem that we got that you could use against them. Their weakness is, just like every man and woman on this planet, the weakness is envy. Envy. All of our weakness is envy. Some of us have it under control where we'll stop and think and not carry further. But there's a lot of us that can't control our envy. We see another one with something, better than us or do better, and we get upset. The same thing with them bastards, But it's just a thought. It's just a thought, I mean, you would do it if you could, right? Let's say you went into space, came back, the planet was rebooted, but you have establishment in different worlds. You've been up there for the longest, and you're just supposed to be say you're a transporter, supposed to go back to Earth and pick up something. You come back and the world has changed. So what would you do? You know, that primitive stuff. It just. Here's another example. Everybody talk about the Spaniards, Christopher Columbus. They even talk about the Ethiopians in Sicily and stuff like that. The Moors in Europe. You know what I'm saying? And they speak about how Columbus could come to a land, bust the heads open of anybody until he get the gold and stuff like that. 300 dudes took on a nation. Isn't that the biggest, how you say, like, you got some balls, you know, like, oh, y'all did that? That's like 300 people from Japan came over and said they took over the USA. Now, you can't imagine that today. Now, because we are equal, right? We're equal in the technology, knowledge of technology, right? So they said 300 people came on a boat and took over USA, started busting heads and people in Brooklyn or somewhere in Compton or whatever, you know, or even in Beverly Hills. What? Even in history, we talk about kingdoms, you know, but somehow all them kingdoms disappeared when the Spaniards came in, and all them kingdoms and all them countries, everybody was in toga with spears, like, they didn't know who the hell they were. You know, there was no soldiers. Yo, it's the same thing like today. You know, back then it's the same thing like today. The Spaniards came over, they had money, all right? They had money. They established themselves within the community. They established themselves within the politics, you know, and it was written as tribal. Everybody's tribal, and they're the only ones in three-piece suits and shirts and boots, and everybody's barefoot, you know. Racism is ugly. You know what I'm saying? Racism is some ugly shit. It messed up history. It messed up history. If you just tell the truth and let it be, you know, let people live, you know. When they went to Italy and stuff like that, they didn't come in there strong arming no Italians. They came in there with gold. They bought their way in the country, bought their way into politics, and then they only gave to their own, and then they took over. That's how they do